Hello everyone. Welcome into Talkin' T-Wolves. I am Garrett Gilbertson, your host, to talk a little T-Wolves with you. Before this evening's game, the Wolves take on the Milwaukee Bucks. After Sunday's loss to the New York Knicks and Coach Tom Thibodeau, Gerson Rosas fired Ryan Saunders and brought in Chris Finch, assistant coach from the Toronto Raptors. A longtime friend from him, from his time in the Houston Rockets organization. Before we get into Chris Finch, let's talk about how we got here. Ryan Saunders was hired 3 years ago after Tom Thibodeau was fired, and he had a very minimal experience in the NBA, formerly being an assistant coach for the Washington Wizards under his dad, Flip Saunders, and then was also an assistant coach for the Wolves under Flip and Tom Thibodeau. But he was brought in as the interim head coach when Tom was fired, and then given the head coaching job shortly after that. Most likely because of his relationship with Glenn Taylor and not Gerson Rosas. Gerson Rosas instead decided to opt for Chris Finch, who he did interview 3 years ago when Ryan Saunders was given the job, but he ended up being hired, Ryan Saunders that is, over Chris Finch, and I have to imagine that had something to do with his ties to Glenn Taylor and not a decision made by Gerson. Chris Finch obviously has a bit more experience than Ryan Saunders. We'll start from the beginning. He was a college player for Division III. He played for Division III. He played for Franklin and Marshall College in Pennsylvania, where he was known as a defensive and offensive player. Is in the top leaderboard at that school in both offensive and defensive categories. He went on to play professionally in Germany and then became a coach for a number of teams in Europe for over a decade. And then he got his chance to be a head coach in the G League for the Rio Grande Valley Vipers, a affiliate of the Houston Rockets, which is probably where he ran into Gerson Rosas and developed a relationship with him. He did win a championship for the Vipers in the G League, most notably being an offensive-minded head coach. He went on to be assistant coaches for the Rockets, for the Denver Nuggets, New Orleans Pelicans, and most recently the Toronto Raptors for the beginning of this year's season. But now he is the Minnesota Timberwolves head coach, and he was given not the interim label but a multi-year deal to be the head coach, most likely because of his ties to Gerson Rosas. Now, you may have been reading some articles and tweets about David Vanderpool, and why didn't he get an opportunity to be the head coach for this team now? He did interview 3 years ago for the job, as well as Ryan Saunders and Chris Finch. I think it is fair to say Ryan Saunders was Glenn Taylor's choice, and that's what Gerson Rosas had to go with. And now that he got the opportunity, because this season and the last three have gone so poorly, that Ryan Saunders needed to be changed out for a more experienced head coach. And I think that Gerson Rosas' relationship with Chris Finch probably played a large deciding factor in hiring him this time around instead of David Vanderpool. Basically, I think that they all went through the interview process 3 years ago. Gerson is a smart guy, and I think he made up his mind then, and it didn't change his mind now to who he wanted to head coach his first team, and first team he was general manager of in the NBA was Chris Finch 3 years ago, and today, or this week, he finally got his way and gave the coaching job to him. So that's kind of where we sit. Chris Finch is, people have called him a offensive minded head coach. He did mention in his press conference the other day that he focuses on defense. The offense begins with the defensive play, and then the offense comes from that. What does that mean? Probably means they're looking to run the court. They're looking to move the ball and play fast, which this team can do. He did have a press conference where he talked about the offensive strategy going forward. Let's take a listen just to see kind of what that might mean in the future for this team.
Well, I think there's plenty of room in pick and roll and playing fast and free. I think the randomness at which pick and roll happens in the league right now is one of the toughest things to guard. Pick and roll is game planned at a high level. It's what we talk about every morning before we go into our coaches meeting and how we're going to guard a lot of different pick and roll scenarios. But when they happen in random combinations and random places on the floor, then they become a lot harder to guard because you can't build a second line of defense. So I think we can find a lot of those opportunities for our guys. What I've learned about coaching is kind of create a structure with some rules and then get out of the way and let these guys be who they are, because they're phenomenal players. And over-coaching them at times is probably more detrimental than under-coaching them. And we want to get them to play free and enjoy it and share the ball and share the space on the floor. And but we gotta start at the other end too, defensively. I mean, our offense will start from our defense.
We'll go back to John Chris.
So that's good to hear that he says the offense will start with the defense, because this team has not been playing very good defense, and they need some kind of defensive identity. I'm really happy that they've kept David Vanderpool on, because he is a defensive-minded assistant coach, and he has a connection to these players, specifically Cat, who needs to play defense and has been showing he can play defense this year. I do like that he's not going to run as much pick and roll as Ryan Saunders did. It felt like under Saunders we were doing the pick and roll and dribble handoff on every play. It was very, very predictable, and it never put the players in the best position to make open shots. So I'm happy that he has a structure. What that structure is going to be, what the rules he says are going to be, I don't know. But I am looking forward to finding out tonight during the game and watching very closely as to how the players react to their new head coach and what he can get out of them. Obviously, after just 2 days of being the head coach, he's not going to implement everything, nor does he have the time. But it will be interesting to see how the players respond, and I think this was the right choice. Ryan Saunders, I didn't think would get fired within the season, but a change needed to happen. I had seen too many times during this year and last year where a head coach needed to step in and draw up a good play for end-of-game situations or make adjustments in games to things that are happening, and I just never saw that from Ryan Saunders. Yes, he was a players coach. He had a great relationship with Carl and with D'Angelo Russell, with the players on the team, but he wasn't that leader head coach that perhaps Chris Finch can be. So with that said, I'm happy that they made a hiring of an experienced coach in the NBA. Yes, it's his first head coaching job at the NBA level, but he did coach at the G League level, had success, so hopefully that translates and follows the Nick Nurse trajectory of a head coach in the NBA and will bring success to the Timberwolves, who desperately need some success. But not too much success this year, because we should keep losing, tank for a top 3 draft pick, not trade the pick. We'll get more into that later. Thank you for watching, everybody. Please click subscribe and tune in every week. We'll try and do a video, multiple videos every week, and give you the voices of some true Minnesota Timberwolves fans here on Talkin' T-Wolves. So thank you.